All right, so that is the first little bit of real volatility we've had in a while. Bitcoin has broken below $100,000, and the question is this thing going to keep dipping lower and lower, or are we actually going to be getting a little bit of relief here and continue on with the uptrend? And obviously, the first thing I want to check is not here on Bitcoin. We could, but I wouldn't be doing you guys a good service here. We've got to look at the S&P 500 first, okay? And the S&P 500 has also dropped below its 6K level here, but marginally, yeah, by about $30, by about 30 points. And same for Bitcoin, by the way. Like, very, very small drop. Again, just, what is that? That's like 0.3%, right? So tiny drop below 100K. And so, I still think that things are looking pretty good. One of the things I want to do, although I don't like to do things too political, you kind of don't have a choice these days as well, is I just want to acknowledge that the US did conduct strikes on Iran yesterday, and markets are fine. So obviously I know there's a lot of concerns around this conflict right now, and it could get worse, but what we've been saying on this channel for the last couple of weeks now is, ever since that whole Elon Trump saga happened that everybody already forgot about, we are clearly actually in really, really good posture right now as far as this market goes, given the context of the world. And that's really important, right? Because when you've got everybody and their nan telling you, a bearish story about what this market is set up for, that's one thing, and, it is what it is, right? I don't want to pass judgment on it right now, but, when we've got all of that sentiment and then we've got prices, holding up quite well, I think we're still actually pretty good. And, by the way, I do want to show this to you right here. We are looking at, a kind of 11-12% drop from the all-time high. So, really, quite an insubstantial drop, to be honest. Not a particularly large drop at all. I wouldn't even call this a moderate pullback yet. Let's be clear, this rally did start off from 74K. So we went up by 50% and we are now down by 12. So I'm seeing a lot of people making very, very bearish remarks about this chart, right? And one of the popular ideas that are going around right now is, of course, because we just can't, get over abusing ourselves as crypto investors, it is that, Bitcoin is looking similar to its top here in 2021, right? Which, by the way, I totally understand, right? I mean, the similarities are there. We're setting, only slightly higher all-time highs each time, which is, again, exactly what we've done over here. It's the same thing. So, this is definitely in play. And, the idea is that we're now going to see a big tumble. And, if you really believe all the World War III hype, then you're probably going to be a lot more invested in these ideas as well. Look, I think that if that's the side that you're kind of sitting on, there's not a whole lot I can say to you at this stage. So, maybe this video is not for you. But if you like kind of open discourse, then brilliant, you're in the right place. Bitcoin dominance, by the way, has set a new high, as we were predicting on this YouTube channel. So shout out to those of you that have been consistently watching the content right here. If you are interested in trading on some of the exchanges that we've been using here, then obviously, Bybit is going to be the best in the game, and Levex is a great alternative for those of you that would actually like to see some exclusive chart updates from the team as well. So really, really cool one. They've got full proof of reserves and everything else that you're used to. Great liquidity, and like I said, that super, super cool social feature where we've been posting charts about kind of setups we're looking at, now for quite a few weeks, I think, and it's stuff that not even Telegram has seen. So definitely check it out if you are curious right there with that link. But let's bring it back to the video. Sitting here at this kind of 99K level, we're not dropping by much, and we're definitely doing things in accordance with a 50% move. So this is not worrying as it stands. The S&P 500 also in really, really good posture. Really, the only thing that we're seeing is, it's going to be total 3 and actually total 2. That are down quite bad right now. Let's just measure it from our kind of May highs, to give ourselves a kind of point of comparison. Total 2 down by 20%. Bitcoin, of course, like we said, is only down from its same May highs by about 12%. So clearly, most of these losses are happening outside of BTC. Total 2, for those of you who don't know, is the entire crypto market, excluding BTC. Total 3 is, that's not Total 3. Total 3 is excluding BTC and Ethereum. What is this one here? There's so many. And stable coins. That's probably a good one too. And if we measure this from the highs, that is a 28% drop. So, and by the way, that additional, minus 8%, that's gonna, really hit the altcoins quite hard. I mean, take a look at Trump coin. It's fallen even below the $9 level now. Solana is down at $130. So, actually that last 8% that, kind of got knocked off, that was a much bigger deal for altcoins because they're even smaller, right? Ethereum can absorb those hits a little bit more because it's so large. Bitcoin can absorb them much better because it's significantly larger. But altcoins, by comparison, are tiny, okay? I mean, here's XRP now dipping below $2, which, by the way, I mean, long term, I'm not saying that this is an easy buy or anything like that, but it's obviously super, super appealing, especially for people that are interested in this for that next pump that could be happening. Because if we take a look at this on a kind of logarithmic scale, this is the first time in history that XRP has managed to produce a big pump, and then actually it's the second time in history because this one happened here, and then it kind of, stabilized, getting ready for a next leg up. And, on this occasion here, from the kind of midpoint to the high that it was a 1,500% move or a 16 times gain. So absolutely enormous. If we even do something, much more moderate than that, we're still even looking at, above $10. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I definitely think that, $5, $6, $7 totally possible in this market cycle. So these things are starting to look really, really appealing. And by the way, this is the kind of thing that we've been posting inside of Levex as well. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, then there's tons in here that you've been missing out on. So definitely check that out. It's a completely free sign up. You don't even have to do anything to get access to those posts. You don't even have to trade on it. So really, really cool stuff. But they will give you free money to trade with when you do sign up. So that's cool as well. Again, obviously with all exchanges, only if you are allowed to in your jurisdiction, in your country. Always check your own local laws and regulations. But bringing it back to the market here again, just for BTC, like I said, pretty good posture to me. Small pullback, nothing that I'm kind of upset about in any way at all. I think that we're actually looking really, really good. I think that the fact that people are kind of really scared right now is a brilliant sign for us because it kind of gives us a lot of kind of space to play with, and I don't know why that's not working, so we'll just skip that for now. Can't show you the fear and greed index, but hey, that's okay. We know that fear and greed index is just a number, but if we kind of look at what people are saying, there's definitely a lot of kind of uncertainty going on. One of the things that I like to do at times like this is, of course, throw a nice little Fibonacci on the chart and see where we might be getting some nice high probability pullback zones. 97k remains one of the best zones on the chart. Again, this is one of the reasons that I don't understand why people are getting so emotional about the market now, because we haven't even fallen down to the best level of support on this chart yet. So, a lot of people, they like to be bearish, when the market is at the bottom. But, for me, as we approach, support levels, I'm actually going to get a little bit more bullish, believe it or not. That's just kind of how I do things. It works for me. I like to buy low and sell high, but I know that, not everybody's like that, especially in crypto. So I'll respect boundaries for this video. But, 382 retracement here at 97k. Obviously it makes so much sense. I'm sure if we still take a fixed range point of control, a fixed range volume profile, our point of control is going to be right here at about 95.6. So it's slightly lower than that 382 retracement, but very much within an acceptable margin of error as far as, 1.4% move, right? It's absolutely nothing. So this is a big zone for Bitcoin. I would really like to see Bitcoin kind of come into this zone. Anywhere between these two yellow lines, I think would be absolutely fantastic. We can actually go ahead and draw a nice little box right there and make this box yellow as well. I really think that that's going to be a kind of important price level for us to be watching out for, just anywhere kind of between 95 to kind of 98k, I guess you could say, as far as a really, really nice kind of Bitcoin retracement level. Of course, we've also got this 618 retracement level down here. These are the two most important fib levels in my experience of over 8 years in this game. There are, of course, other fib levels that are fantastic, but I don't really look at them too much. I just like these two. And, I think that this really lines up with a more kind of fearful, scenario here, but also, really good. I would actually, and I've been saying this for weeks or months now, that, I would still like to see Bitcoin kind of come down to here. We already kind of had a deviation below this 90k level all the way down to about 89k with this wick. And if the market really wants to turn up the fear, maybe the conflict heats up a little bit, I'm totally okay with, I'm not okay with war at all, I don't like it, but as far as markets are concerned, I'm totally okay with a retracement down to, 87k. I think that this is a super respectable level to see things kind of come down to. And of course, this would probably mean that the S&P 500 is what kind of drags Bitcoin down. And there's a really nice support level still sitting over here that we never really back tested. We did test it very briefly, but we only got above this level and then back tested it within a week, which, yeah, it's fine. It's a week. It's not, a day or a few hours, but it would be really nice to get a slightly more kind of macro retracement now, and it would also just, it would really start to form quite a bullish kind of pennant formation that could start looking a little bit like this. Understandably, it would take a little bit longer than we want to break out, but that's just an idea that, could be a little bit more conservative. I don't know. It looks like things are moving a little bit faster than that now, so it might not even get that far, but I definitely think that, yeah, there are some, pretty interesting support levels if we do end up kind of taking a shit here for BTC. As far as support levels go on indicators, I do want to take a look at the daily Ichimoku, which is looking pretty clean. A ton of support here. This is the thing, right, is that we haven't even hit some of our, really reliable zones of support. Admittedly, it wasn't reliable at all last time, but that doesn't typically happen twice in a row in my experience, but who knows, I could be wrong about that. So I really like this, the fact that we haven't hit any of our kind of major support zones yet, but, sentiment is really bad, because that is typically what actually paves the way forward for us to continue going up in price, okay? Because if we're falling down to support levels but everybody is bidding, then there's going to be a lot of stop losses and liquidation levels below that support level, right? And that's how we get those stop hunts. That's how we get those really, really nasty, the market drops down to here, but then it like wicks down and kind of comes back up and then continues. We're a little bit less likely to get that if people are shitting themselves at a point like this, right? Because there's just not going to be enough kind of bullish liquidity down here. So instead, you're probably going to be getting some shorts building up here, which means stop losses are up here. So instead of, a situation that looks like this, you're actually more typically going to get situations that look like that. And we've seen tons of that happening here. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel like we're kind of leaning that way a little bit more. Our daily 200 moving average, our 200-day moving average is right here at about 96K as well, right at the point of control. So what do you want, man? You know what I mean? So it's a pretty good, kind of chart setup right here. It's really not something that I can personally be concerned with. I think that there's a ton of really, really useful support over here. As far as EMAs, we've lost them. We haven't been able to kind of keep on top of those EMAs here on the daily. On the weekly, we haven't hit them yet, and they're actually quite reliable on the weekly. So, and I definitely think they'll be reliable in this case, because they stretch all the way down to 84K, and I'm still okay with 84K. Let's be clear, ladies and gents. You can be as emotional about this as you want. That's okay, but the bottom of this kind of cycle phase, or whatever you want to call it, is 74K. So as long as we, fall anywhere higher than this level, we're good. We can fall down to here and be good. We can fall down to here and be good. There's a lot of different, conflicting theories about this, right? There are ideas that, if you punch this low, then how strong are you really, right? And that's the kind of, idea that can really spook you out of the market. But my problem with that is, then you would have probably taken yourself out on this wick, right? There would be a few wicks that would, really, really scare. Basically, what I'm saying is you're too sensitive if that's your... I don't know. I might be wrong about that too, obviously. What do I know? But, for me, it would be too sensitive to the kind of price swings for me to kind of make a big deal out of anything above 74K. Because we're still holding market structure. Ultimately, if we're still punching in higher lows, then what do you want, man? It's Bitcoin. You're not going to get... the perfect ride that you're looking for. It's going to be bumpy, and I think it's really good for your mental health to kind of be okay, and to have your positions also be okay with drops that come down this low. It could even go lower. I mean, the last market cycle, we went lower than the lows over here, didn't we? Or we matched the lows over here. So this is enough to take people out of the market. I mean, it took me out of the market. I didn't actually get out. I would never get out. But, it certainly made me feel like the bull market was over. And then, of course, it recovered. And it's not the first or last time that Bitcoin's done something silly like this. It might be the last time, but I don't think so. So, I think they were good, as far as kind of support levels go. There's a ton that we haven't actually used yet. And, yeah, we did still rally to the all-time high. I understand that the actual all-time high that we set, was not so impressive. But... we got to give it a little bit of time. I think that's what people have really been getting wrong during this market cycle. The only thing this market cycle has asked for so far, and we are going back to November of 2022 from the absolute bottom now, Only thing this market has actually asked for is a little bit of time. And if you've been patient with it, then you've been rewarded really, really well throughout this entire market cycle. So I definitely think that elements like that, ideas like that, are going to continue to serve well in this market right now. I feel like there's a lot that's still kind of ready to go. Like I said, I mean, the Fed is obviously one of the bigger ones, right? Because as soon as those interest rates come down, you are going to see quite likely quite a good amount of capital kind of flow into the market. And hey, let's be clear, ladies and gents, there's a lot of news that we've seen over the last couple of years of some big guys kind of going cash only and getting out of their investments, right? Not a lot, but enough to make people kind of interested in the headlines. And the really good news about this is once you've clicked the red button, and once you're sitting back in cash, you're parked back in USDT or whatever it may be, you can't do anything anymore. The next button you can buy, the next button you can click is the green button, is the buy button, right? So I think that there's a good amount of kind of sideline capital here, and some factors that we know kind of have to go off eventually, right? I mean, it's been a long time. Granted, I think you and I have probably been expecting interest rates to come down for well over a year at this point. So has everybody else, right? But it can't stay that way forever. And I think with the fact that the markets are holding up so well, that's a really, really good sign. I mean, look, you could be saying that this is Armageddon and we're done, and it's just the end of times, and this cycle has topped. But you would also be saying that after a 12% drop. So for me, it's just not really something I can take particularly. 625% up, 12% down, and we're shitting ourselves. No thanks. You can do it, but I won't be involved. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how I'm going to be playing this market. Here's Ethereum. Pretty big drop here for Ethereum, but down to a very nice kind of respectable level. I've had this drawn out as a big thick level for a little bit of time now at about 2130. Really, really nice support level for Ethereum. I'm not saying that this could hold either. I don't know. Obviously, it's really just going to move at the mercy of BTC, and at that, it's probably going to be a little bit weaker than BTC. So definitely something that I think could end up being a problem for the markets here, if BTC does end up kind of continuing to dip lower, because that would definitely indicate that Ethereum is going to get swept with that as well, right? And we can see a pretty stark loss on this Ethereum BTC chart right here on the weekly. But if we even turn this over to the daily, it's arguably looking worse, isn't it? So still, very recoverable. Like I said, I think that this is still, a really, really good, kind of situation for Ethereum against Bitcoin. When we did things like this in the past, it really didn't go particularly well at all, right? Like, we're kind of, in something like that right now. But I think that just purely based off the fact that we are, literally, 50% lower than the last time. Well, I guess the last time it happened was probably over here, but I wouldn't say that this is as comparable, because, we were actually quite stable at the top. So that's why I'm taking this as my comparison point. I think obviously the lower you get, the more likely you are to start reversing, right? Again, which is completely counterintuitive for many people in crypto, because they prefer to, sell the bottom and buy the top. But obviously, if you don't want to do that, if you want to actually, make money, then, actually it helps to kind of invert that a little bit and just, do this the way that you're supposed to. So I think that this is interesting. It's not over until we lose this green line, but if we do, we're back in this yellow box, which is, again, a phenomenal place to buy Ethereum. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more strength on Ethereum moving forward, even if it does keep on dropping. I think that if Ethereum does keep on dropping, then that really what that's going to mean is that total 3 is going to drop really, really hard. That's kind of, what I would be expecting. Let's just see this, including USDT and other stable coins. It's down by 33%. So a lot of money leaving crypto here, you know what I mean? And obviously most of it, leaving altcoins, not just BTC. So, I think for the most part, we're still kind of responding to what's happening with traditional finance. And, look, there's a ton of things you could do. There's a ton of papers and then data that you could read, and, good for you if that's what you like to do. But ultimately, you can't get away from the hard facts here, the cold hard facts, which are that, June has been a pretty crazy month. There's definitely been a pretty decent level of instability as far as the world goes, and even stocks in America and so on. And I think despite that, the markets have held up incredibly well. And to me, I mean, look, you can always spin a bearish hypothesis off anything, but I'm just looking at the data. I think given how crazy June has been, and there's still 8 days left of this month, so that's still a third of the month remaining. Just remember what happened in the first week of June. You know what I mean? So with all of that in mind, we're seeing, super minor fluctuations on the S&P 500, super minor pullbacks on Bitcoin. To me, this says that if things start reversing, which they really could at any moment, that we're probably in a so for me, it's all about just making sure that as we come down to really interesting levels that are worth bidding, especially as sentiment continues to sour, if we reach there and sentiment's really really bad, I think for sure, ladies and gents, that we're going to be looking at a pretty easy market here as far as kind of picking up some coins on a cheaper kind of support level. Like I said, Solana down at $130 is super super interesting. It fell down to about 127. Really nice kind of consistent bounce. It's a dangerous one. It's kind of difficult to bid this level, especially on leverage. But certainly for spot buys, I mean, hard to go wrong. I feel I could be completely wrong, like I said, but. Just based on kind of what I feel here, XRP, similar situation. Binance Coin, obviously, literally just a stable coin since, more or less the beginning of 2024, which is super impressive. And, now down to a pretty interesting support level. So a lot of these levels, a lot of these markets kind of coming down to really, really nice levels. Here's Hype Coin seeing a slightly bigger kind of pullback here. If it's not able to hold on to this level, then it's coming down to about $27. So lots going on here, ladies and gents. And I think that it's definitely heating up. We're getting closer to that point where I think some easier money can be made, which is really, really interesting. So as usual, we'll be keeping it locked right here on the 4Flies channel. If you want to catch more updates, and obviously make sure that you are smashing up those likes and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Tick the bell icon as well. Check out these beautiful exchanges if you want to get access to some really, really cool big bonuses and Levex for these chart setup updates from the team. Obviously, always bear in mind your country's local laws and regulations before you sign up to anything, just to make sure that you're staying compliant. And obviously, yeah, that really, really cool 12-week program that we mentioned, super intense, super serious. If you guys want to get some details about that, you can reach out to a member of the team right here with this direct contact link on Telegram. But ladies and gents, really hope you've enjoyed this one. You know what to do. If you have, smash up those likes, subscribe, tick the bell, all the good stuff, and we'll see you all in the next one.